Okay, it is on.
Oh, it's just crazy.
to here.
It's crazy.
I've been absent from. By the way, we did vote on it.
Oh, what?
Oh, I know we did.
Oh, I know, there's a train that goes by.
Hopefully we'll get
That
more
to be last time. I
attendance. We
came
might
earlier
get more
this week.
attendance also, but that.
Okay. That's how I am. Like, I think my eyes. I'm not joking.
And then I forgot I didn't have this stuff, so I had to go all the way to the house. And then Michael, Michael had to call me because he got my watch out. He's on the
Woman change, you don't need to worry about changing.
No. I feel like I saw it, though. I don't have, where'd you get it? I don't have
We
it.
sent it out.
Did you send it out? Well, then I
everybody.
have it then. If you
Yes.
sent it out. then-
Yes, we sent it out to
I've
everybody.
seen it.
Yeah.
I didn't think I had a copy of it.
I wouldn't, yeah. I went home right now. No way, I never get out of there. It's like black hole.
Well,
And I think
that's probably where I saw it. Data.
Data. Okay, it is 5 o'clock. I'd like to welcome everybody to the regular Board of Trustees of the Indian River County Hospital District regular monthly meeting. So welcome to all those that are out here today, and as well as anybody that is watching us from TV. Appreciate you all being here. We will convene the meeting. We'd like to start our meeting tonight with Jim Gallagher, who's the senior pastor for Calvary Chapel.
Thank you. Shall we pray? Father, we first of all thank you for your heart. Lord, your word talks about your love over and over again and how your love motivates you to give, and that you gave that which was of the greatest value. Your word says you gave us your son. And Lord, I thank you that when we read your word, there's over and over again that you have encounters with needy people. Lord, I think there's, over 30 times in the Gospels, Jesus, where we see you coming alongside those who are in need. I think of that poor woman who had an issue of blood and for 12 years and had spent everything that she had and was unable. And Lord, you saw her and you knew her need and you were moved with compassion towards her. You touched the lepers and the sick and the broken. And Lord, as these men and women have given themselves to be involved in the distribution of funds that will help to care for the needy, I ask that you would give them wisdom. Pray, Lord, that the decisions that they make would have a long-term positive effect upon those that are in need, those that are hurting. Lord, I also think of that passage where you took 5 loaves and 2 fish and you multiplied them. And Lord, no matter how much resources they have, no matter what the budget might look like, Lord, there's more than can be done. And so, Lord, I pray that you just multiply that, multiply their efforts, and again, give them wisdom as they distribute that. And Lord, together we would just pray also that you'd bless our community. You just shine your grace and your goodness and your mercy down upon Indian River County. And we thank you in Jesus' name. Amen.
It's nice.
Thank you very much. And Michael, if you will lead us in the Pledge of Allegiance.
Please join in. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
So we will start with the consent agenda. I would like a motion for approval of the chairman's meeting minutes dated March 14th, the regular monthly meeting minutes dated March 15th, and an April disbursement of approximately.
Not approximately, precisely,
Precisely.
$1,431,902.54.
So moved.
So moved it.
Second? Okay. All in favor?
Aye.
Okay. Reports. Just yesterday, I gave an update in the chairman's meeting on what is going on right now in terms of the relationship with Cleveland Clinic. Almost all of the due diligence is complete. It's taken a lot longer finding some of the data and information to be able to fill the data rooms than what was originally anticipated. But I believe we are about 99% there now, and they are going through 30 years worth of reports and data and everything else, and it's a lot of information. Also, they're getting up to speed on understanding all the legal requirements relative to doing business with a district and what that means and what the legal requirements allow us to do and don't allow us to do. And so we've had a number of conversation with the lawyers relative on that. And so we are moving forward. It's positive. The relationship is still very, very positive. And I know they're very involved in the community still. So we're moving along. I think we were maybe a little bit more aggressive in anticipating we'd be farther along than we are. But it's not because of any major issues. It's just because there's a lot more data and information that we're going through right now. So we will keep you up to date, and we are still targeting to be able to have a definitive agreement as of July 1. Approved and through both boards. So we have a long way to go yet. So that's kind of where we are right now. I have nothing else. District Council?
Thank you. I don't want to be redundant, so I have been very involved with the due diligence process, and Mary Beth spoke mostly about that, so I don't want to repeat that, but that's really what we've been doing this past month as council on this transaction. In addition, as general counsel, I've begun to prepare for the upcoming budget cycle meetings that we will be attending and hearing from our agencies that wish to be funded in this coming fiscal year, and I'll be working with our staff to ensure that our agreements are up to date and address any changes as need be to the agreements based on what funding is appropriated. And then, of course, I'm always available to answer any questions of any of the trustees on the board or our staff as they arise as we continue to move through this process. Any questions?
All right, thank you. Financial statement review. Mr. Jones?
Thank you. Well, the district remains in sound financial shape. However, you should be alert to the fact that at this year's spending rate, if it continues, could require the invasion of reserves that have been set aside for other purposes and could actually negatively affect next fiscal year's millage rate to make up any drawdown in those reserves that may occur. Through March 31st, the district's bank deposits total about $10.6 million, of which a little over $2.5 million is set aside for these reserves that I mentioned. This leaves a net balance of a little over $8 million in the operating account, but after the payment of this month's $1.4 million, which you may have noticed is somewhat higher than our typical disbursement, the operating account's going to drop down to about $6.6 million. It's projected by the county that we'll get another $918,000 or so in tax revenues to complete this year's funding. And that'll bring us up to about $7.5 million. Program expenses plus operating administrative expenses plus the special projects, which includes the collaborative partnership process, which Chairman Cunningham and Attorney Jennifer Pesky have just mentioned. We're budgeted to we're budgeted to spend about $7.9 million. So between now and fiscal year end. So that could require us to invade reserves by as much as $400,000 if we stay within budget. But that also assumes that the outside legal expenses necessary to complete the proposed Cleveland Clinic transaction do not exceed the budgeted amount. Thus far, the collaborative effort regarding IRMC has paid, we've paid almost exactly $400,000 of the $1 million we set aside for the purpose of outside legal efforts and communication services. However, as mentioned, Extensive legal work is being done now. And it's possible, at least it's certainly possible, that total costs will exceed the budgeted amount. So this report's not intended to alarm trustees, but merely to alert you to the fact that this year's budget may turn out to be tighter than normal. A lot of this pressure is actually coming from IRMC, as volumes of patients are up. This includes indigent patients. Through the first 6 months of this fiscal year, indigent outpatient volume is up 7.5%, and the more costly inpatient volume is up 18.8%. There are indications these increases may moderate in the next 6 months. And in fact, there are also indications that we may have some reversals coming that would cause charges to result in some favorable impact on our budget year to date. But until these actually materialize, discretion seems the better choice at the moment. And I recommend trying to avoid approving new spending, no matter how worthy the cause, if it's not currently in the budget. So, any questions about this? If not, I'll stop.
We have
Okay.
5 more months, right?
6, because the numbers are actually through March 31. But, April through September usually results in declining volumes. So I would expect some favorable impact, but we may offset that with our legal expenses. So we'll see.
Any,
Outside legal expenses.
Just want to thank Alan for a very good report, as always.
yes. Thank you.
Thank you.
Anne Marie Soriano is not here, but her written report is a part of the package, so we can look at that later. So, funded agency quarterly report, we've got Brett Hall here to talk to us about the Mental Health Collaborative.
Good evening. Thank you for having me here this evening to talk about the Mental Health Collaborative. As always, it continues to be a busy time with the initiatives of the collaborative. First of all, we support, along with several other agencies in town, the mental health court under the leadership of Judge Cox and Sheriff Lohr, and that has gone exceptionally well. They have 110 people in this program, and the program is designed to get folks with mental illness out of the jail and into treatment. They just ran a stat about a month ago. They took a cohort of 100 patients that were in mental health court, ran their arrest records the year before mental health court, and that cohort had 387 arrests. They did that same cohort for a year after entering mental health court, and that same cohort had 8 arrests. So 8. So it's just significant, the impact that this program has done. And as you know, it started under the leadership of Judge Cox and Sheriff Lohr, and then we wrote a reinvestment grant with the Mental Health Association, with Legacy Behavioral Health, and the Collaborative to expand that program, to take it from 40 patients up to 110, 120, where we can push it. So you can just see the impact that it's having. Just a great, great program. And that's going well. Obviously, our big initiative, we just celebrated our 1-year anniversary with the McCabe Connection Center. And as you know, that's a navigation service for the community to get folks. We know that there are plenty of quality programs and services in town, but people just don't always know how to access them. So that's what we do. In our first year, we saw 1,300 people in a year. That's 1% of the entire, almost 1% of the entire population of Indian River County. I think I included some reports in the packet. We got almost 500 people into a psychiatrist, and as you know, that's not, here's a name and a number, good luck. We make the appointment for them. We make sure they have transportation to the appointment, and we make reminder calls to make sure that they get there. Out of those 500 people, 81 of them needed to see a psychiatrist within 5 days, or they would likely end up in the emergency room or inpatient psychiatry. And we got an appointment for all 81 people in 5 days. And that has nothing to do with us. It has all to do with the partnership with the providers in town. We don't provide services. We just get people where they need to go. So, I mean, it's psychiatry, it's therapy, it's everything. I mean, we design the places we talk to respond to what walks in the door. And people came looking for housing. We're not a housing provider. That's not our expertise. And we certainly get them to Treasure Coast Homeless Services Council. They're the expert in town. But there are folks that just didn't meet their criteria, their program that fell out. So we've assisted 19 people in getting them into permanent affordable housing in town. So we just branch out and do where we can. And what's really interesting is just those, kind of the run-of-the-mill cases, but we've done some other things like I worked on today, there's a woman with agoraphobia that hasn't left her house in 2 years. Her husband cannot get her out of the house. And she's got significant medical conditions. She's on Coumadin and some other things. I convinced a provider in town to go with me, and we're going to do a psychiatric assessment in her house probably tomorrow, if not Monday. There's another case where we're going to intervene with hoarding and help with professional cleanup. So there's those unusual cases too. And these are the things that just don't happen in other counties without programs like this. So the outcomes that continue to come from the McCabe Connection Center are just exceptional. Different initiatives that we've worked on, the 19th Circuit Judicial Court Administrator came to me. They had 0 guardian advocates as substitute decision makers for persons with psychiatric illness. We expanded that program. I recruited 11 guardian advocates, and I retrained the facilities on all the expectations. So that small training with a few guardian advocates turned into a 40-person Baker Act conference, and we got the attention of some very good people, the Southeast Region Department of Children and Families Administrator. So we're online with helping rewrite. There's a governor order to look at the Baker Act and make recommendations for changes. So we're now on the pipeline with helping reform some of that legislation and make it a more workable bill. So providing leadership on that. We're doing the coordination on stigma and the awareness campaigns for mental illness with May and October. There's a big International Depression Screening Day in October. So we're going to mobilize the community and ensure that on October 11th, anybody that wants a depression screening is going to get one. And they're going to get the treatment if they need it. We continue to work on housing. I mean, we've worked on housing for 15 years, and we're probably going to work on housing for another 15 years. But we continue to make inroads with the things that we're doing with affordable housing. There's a couple opportunities with mental health court and some rentals, putting some peers in to supervise. And the word is out there. We got from Commissioner O'Brien a name for a property developer that wants to work with us and doing some housing specifically for persons with mental illness. And we're working on political advocacy. So we're helping set up for the school safety gun bill that went through and the Executive Order 1881, which means no wrong door and how people access services. So what we do is we pull the community together, coordinate them, make sure they have the information they need, and then we present ourselves as one big united front with mental health. So besides that, we're kind of boring over at the collaborative.
Really? Brett,
Yes.
what is the biggest gap surprise that you've experienced over the last year? Something that you didn't expect that you would find out,
Something I didn't expect.
service-wise or anything?
Substance abuse services. We have the Substance Awareness Center in town that does a really great job. They do a lot of prevention work in the schools, but we don't have a certified intensive outpatient program in Indian River County. Anybody that needs that service, and that's usually a step down from a detox, we don't provide that in Indian River County. Now, I have talked with SAC, with Robin and Carrie, and they are putting one together. So we hope to have one in May. But that was a big surprise for me, substance abuse. I mean, the other surprising thing is always housing. And it's not, we always look at housing as, how do you eat an elephant? One bite at a time. It's different pockets of housing. So a big one is affordable housing. And we're not talking about just housing for the mentally ill. We're just talking about affordable housing. And I can tell you, our Candace, our housing expert, our 211 employee, our housing expert, takes a different route to work every day so she can look for new rentals and take pictures of the phone number and call. And so we're in line for all the rentals. And she's told me in the past 2 months, rents have gone up 10, 15, 20%, just in the last 2 months. We cannot find a $700 one-bedroom anymore. They just
We're
don't exist.
experiencing that with seniors as well.
Yeah. Seniors, that was another big thing that we experienced. We didn't know, we didn't, well, when we built it, we didn't know what was going to walk in the door, but lots of seniors needing lots of services. And we were approached by Randy Riley from the United Way. He's putting together a senior collaborative, which is just exceptional. And so I'm working with him, and I'm giving him every note that we ever took at the Mental Health Collaborative so that they can, emulate and don't have to make the mistakes that we did. So
We
that's
appreciate
good.
that.
Yeah, that's a few of the things. Yeah.
Now, your depression screening,
Yes, ma'am.
will those people come to you, or will you be taking that on the road somewhere?
I think we should be taking it on the road. It's in October, so we have some time to plan. We're pulling in all of the provider agencies in town to work together as a united front. We're going to take it on the road, and anywhere people are that want a depression screening, we're going to do it.
Well, I know that there is an effort to collaboratively find something more for the VNA mobile unit throughout the community. So hopefully you are working with them. I know that Kathy Orton is here, the interim CEO, and I know that she is pulling some groups together. She's in the back, way in the back. She just
Kathy and I
came.
had this conversation this afternoon.
Okay, excellent. Okay, I'm just a.
Yeah.
Okay, good, perfect.
We had the exact same
Perfect.
conversation this afternoon.
Take it on the road.
All right, yes.
I would like to thank you, Brett, for your leadership in this, because without your leadership, this really wouldn't have gotten off the ground either. And you've been the mainstay and the one that brings it together. So from our perspective, thank you so much.
Oh, thank you very much.
Absolutely. Thank you,
Really a lot
Brett,
of
so
fun.
much.
Thank you.
Thank you. The IRMC monthly report, Journey to Excellence. Jason? Welcome.
Good evening. Thank you so much for having me. I have a very positive story about our process improvement initiative at IRMC. My name is Jason Carey. I serve as Vice President of Transformation at Indian River Medical Center. I run the Journey to Excellence, which is commonly referred to as J2E at the medical center. As many of you know, we embarked on this journey just less than 1 year ago. Our focus is on process improvement through elimination of waste and creating standard work to facilitate world-class patient-centered care. My team works under the guidance of our executive guiding team with the goal of bridging the gap between administration and frontline caregivers in process improvement. We provide guidance, coaching, and the tools necessary for caregivers to participate in problem solving and process improvement in a top-down, bottom-up synergistic approach. Our initial value stream selected for improvement is the optimization of nursing workflow to allow for a greater percentage of nursing time to be focused on direct patient care. It was identified early on in our journey that improving nurses' ability to spend more time at the bedside rendering patient care would be a major satisfier for both clinical quality outcomes, patient satisfaction, and employee satisfaction. Our CNO, Linda Walton, sponsored this value stream and provided support for its success all the way through. I'm happy to report that after months of preparation, 2 weeks ago, we gathered 10 caregivers and 2 patient representatives for our first 5-day RPIW, or Rapid Process Improvement Workshop. The workshop topic was nurse-to-nurse communication, and the event was a great success. Please allow me to introduce Crystal Golightly, nurse manager of 4 South, our initial floor to engage in an event. Crystal served as process owner for the workshop team and will share her perspective on the importance of organized, collaborative process improvement and current progress on her unit with the initiatives created in this workshop. Also, please welcome Paula Anderson Finley. Paula, as an active volunteer member of our Patient and Family Engagement Committee at IRMC, graciously donated her time to participate as a member of the workshop team for the entire week. She'll share her experience and takeaways from the event. Thank you.
Good evening. My name is Crystal Golightly, nurse manager of 4 South. Over the past few weeks, we have diligently worked on improving nurse-to-patient communication and standard work. The process improvement team reviewed the current state of the nurse handoff process in an effort to capture both the nurse and the patient's voice. Nurse handoff is a time when responsibility and accountability of care is transferred from one nurse to another at a change of shift. In our effort to enhance the trust among the staff members and patient, we encourage them both to actively participate in the creation of this new tool. The primary objective of the nurse handoff process provides critical information about the patient's care, about services and treatment and current condition or any recent unanticipated changes. This exchange of information has to be reliable in order to meet the patient's safety goals. In our current state, we found the handoff process was inconsistent in ways of communication between nursing and therefore could potentially cause or increase adverse events and delay transition of care. By creating a reliable, standardized process for sharing accurately and timely information, distractions and interruptions would be minimized while positively impacting the patient's overall experience and decreasing their anxiety. Some examples of the communication tools we produced during the week of our first RPIW include a new whiteboard in every patient's room, a report sheet in SBAR format, which stands for Situation, Background, Assessment, and Recommendation, and the eye care safety checklist. I stands for IV lines, C for clean and clutter-free rooms, A for alarms such as your bed alarm and chair alarms, R for reach to make sure to keep your patient's items within reach, and E, equipment for verifying that the equipment is functioning properly. Just to touch on the new communication whiteboard, they will be much larger than the current one and provide areas for the patient or caregiver to write notes in order to communicate with the healthcare team. We've also included an area labeled Patient Preferences and Preferred Patient Name, which supports the emphasis on our patients. I would be remiss if I did not acknowledge the support of the Indian River Medical Center, Board of Trustees, and leadership that has allowed my team to undergo the transformation and experience the unimpeded support of our team at Indian River Medical Center. Thank you.
Hello, I'm Paula. I've been in Indian River since 1996. I'm your neighbor. I'm a parent. I'm a patient and family member of BHC, patient and family member of Indian River Medical Center all the way around in every area. I'm a member of the Patient and Family Engagement Committee. That committee's been around for a few years now. I also was a consultant to your organization from 1998 until about 2014. I made some changes in my personal life, pulled back from my consulting practice a little bit to give some attention to my family, and started to volunteer when the Patient and Family Engagement Committee was formed. Having the opportunity to be with Crystal, Jason, all of Crystal's team, Jason and his team, Linda Walton, and Janet Longenberger was what I have been waiting for since 1996. I love Indian River County. I raised a son here in Indian River County. I came from Miami, and I'm uniquely qualified to share with you what I'm about to tell you. I was raised in a medical family and chose to do something else. I chose to be involved in organizational development and leadership, which very much in the last 30 years has been involved in lean systems, which is what they're working on. What Crystal is trying to do on her unit is like trying to rewire the house with the electricity on. It's so exciting. Shift happens in that hospital every day. On the Patient and Family Engagement Committee, we have auxiliary members of all ages. We have members of the community organizations like the Alzheimer's Association, like Mental Health Association, who Brett knows well and collaborates with, people like myself that are in business that care about the community, and people that work at the hospital, both at Scully Welsh and in the hospital and BHC. So let me share with you what my focus was, and I worked with somebody else, an auxiliary gentleman that's been with the organization for over 10 years, a lovely fellow, George. Our focus was to be the voice of the patient and family. Our focus was to try to build a relationship with the team that was doing the shift handoff work. Our focus was to go ahead and be Patient and Family Engagement Committee to start to have some more development of inclusion in the healing, whether we're moving on or whether we're going to be in the hospital for a long time, or whether we're going to be sent home, whether we're going to be moved over to hospice, whatever it might be, to engage in being included in that group. Our intent when we were there 2 weeks ago was to go ahead and help break down any existing or perceived barriers that Crystal's nurses might have. The other thing we tried to do was to continue to role play out real life scenarios that weren't scripted, but using their method, the method that they were being trained in and that they were going to continue to use. The other thing we wanted to do was we wanted to be able to be with you tonight, or whatever forums we were invited to share with all the center's caregivers, patient and family engagement committees across the country are making sense. You have a wealth of people and talent and resources in the committee, and there's no bottom line to us, other than letting us come into that private dining room. Oh, you buy us lunch. You do buy us lunch. The outcome, we closed the gap. We built a wonderful relationship. They actually asked me to be here and support them tonight, which is a thrill. So important. The other thing is that lean systems, which I've been publishing about and working on since the early 1990s, is about closing the gap between behavior, performance, and impact. They're making that happen. The numbers that Jason and his team can share with you on how they're going to affect your bottom line are as significant and worth hearing when you're able. You have a lot on your plate, I understand, as what Brett shared with you. Rewiring the house with the electricity on right now with the change that Indian River is about to go under is an unbelievable level of uncertainty. And we are hearing from your floor that they're willing and able. They just need your support. Crystal needs your support. Jason needs your support. I need to be able to go back to Patient Family Engagement Committee and say, when the time begins to be more right, no matter what's happening in the future, that Patient and Family Engagement Committee will at least be invited to see if we can listen, and if asked to answer any questions or comment or add any value, we'll be happy to do that. That's all we're asking. I don't know that you would have any questions for me, but I don't want to walk away from the podium without going ahead and saying, please ask them a few questions, or me. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
So Jason, how many value streams have you actually looked at? Is this the first?
Currently, we're working on 2 value streams. So as we just finished up with this first RPIW, we're starting on our second, which is going to be looking at supply chain. So having the appropriate equipment, the appropriate supplies at the right place, at point of use, when it's needed, and making sure that we're doing that without waste. So that's the next thing that we're working on actively right now. So those are the 2 overarching value streams, but of course many workshops will come underneath those overarching value streams. As you can see, this one was on nursing handoff communication. So that's related to getting nurses to the bedside, which is the overarching value stream goal. So we'll have multiple workshops related to that.
Questions?
Do you have metrics on how you're going to be able to measure the actual impact that was referred to earlier?
Sure, and when you look at lean process, we have what we call a target process report. So we look in every workshop that we do, we look at, for example, space used or steps taken to complete a procedure, distance traveled. So for example, this particular process of handoff, they were using 1,060 square feet of patient area to do a handoff process. And it's because they were doing it in multiple areas. What was actually defined in this is that that handoff would be conducted strictly at the bedside. So just in that, we had a reduction of space utilized down to 670 square feet. So we don't look just at the financial bottom dollar, but we look at all of the savings, the savings in motion and time spent. For example, handoff formerly took at least 45 minutes total lead time. Lead time is the time from beginning all the way to end of that handoff happening, and we reduced it to under 30 minutes in this workshop. And actually, the information that is exchanged is substantially better detail than the information that was exchanged previously. So it's enhancing the detail and reducing the time spent.
And to whom do you report these results?
Well, we actually had a report out session to the entire hospital. It's actually recorded and reported on our intranet. So anyone can see, and it's actually available up on YouTube. But we report this back to the executive guide team.
Thank you.
Do you review this process with your staff through questionnaires to see what their input is on these as these processes are going forward?
We've had feedback, but we have not used questionnaires. When you say questionnaires, probably survey.
Yes.
Yeah, we have not used that tool, but that is a good idea that we can implement. I can tell you the feedback is excellent, though. I can tell you the staff are extremely motivated about it because it gives them an opportunity to share in the decision making. It gives them an opportunity to mold practices. You know, they're doing the work. They're at the bedside. So when we can always take our goals and try to meet in the middle and allow them to help mold their processes that help them do their work more efficiently, the satisfaction is enormous. So we're seeing a lot of that right now.
So one of the main outcomes in lean, in my old world, in the automotive world, was certain large improvement in quality levels. Are you associating that? Are you looking at how quality levels, patient quality, safety type things are also
Absolutely.
impacted?
Absolutely. So again, related to that target process report, we look at finite metrics like I discussed. So we're looking at space saved or steps saved, effort saved, time saved. But we also tie those to, for example, our HCAHPS scores. So what we're expecting to see an increase on after this is completely rolled out throughout the hospital is, of course, it's obvious nurse communication. And if we can improve that category, we could definitely partially attach that to the work that's being done here.
Other comments, questions for Jason or anybody?
All right, thank you very much.
so much.
That's great.
Keep the good work going.
We applaud you for what you're done.
Yes.
Keep it up.
Thank you, sir.
Any unfinished business from trustees? New business, we have Phil Mattson and Stan Bowling here to talk to us about the proposed Aviation Boulevard extension. Welcome.
Thank you. I'm Stan Bowling, County Community Development Director, and here with MPO Director Phil Mattson, and we appreciate you all giving us a few moments this evening to share a concept with you that we think could be beneficial to the hospital, the medical district around it, and the public in general. And we're just here to share some initial information with you all. We're not looking for a decision or anything like that, but if there's any initial comments or questions you all have, we'd be glad to take that back and keep moving forward, hopefully. Again, we appreciate that you all have a lot of other priorities, and we're in the initial stages of this concept. Staff has looked at it from county and city staff. The Board of County Commissioners, the MPO board has looked at the concept, and now we're in initial discussions with potentially affected property owners. And as you'll see in a moment, the district would be a key player in this if it's to move forward and develop. So with that, I'd like to turn it over to Phil to describe it to you.
Thanks, Dan. Hi, Phil Mattson. I'm Indian River County MPO Staff Director, and it's a pleasure to be here tonight. So I want to thank you for having us. Let me give you a little MPO 101. It stands for Metropolitan Planning Organization. And it's sort of this mega government, if you will. It's 5 county commissioners. It's the mayor and vice mayor, typically, of each of the cities, and the school district. And we meet monthly. And we're established by federal statute. And we have 2 major jobs, and that's to do a long-range transportation plan with a 25-year horizon to make sure mobility is maintained for all citizens. And you're one of the key stakeholders because people's livelihoods and health and well-being is dependent on your being able to be mobile and get to the hospital and get people there. And we do a short-range plan. So we tell the federal and state government where we would like to see the gas tax spent that they collect. And that's considerable. At the state level, it's about 30 cents a gallon. Federal level is 18.4 cents a gallon. So we can use that fund with certain restrictions on different roads and different modes of transportation in the county. We also do the administrative work and contract and grant funding for the GO Line, Public Transportation, Senior Resource Association. We do the rails and trails program, also sidewalk, bicycle, non-motorized, and so forth. So it's a pretty mixed bag. And we don't build anything. We're a very small staff. We're a planning staff, but we sure pay for a lot of stuff. So let's take a look at what we have on the table tonight. And this is 37th Street traffic situation, and I don't really need to tell you any. Basically, it's like the weatherman telling you what his instrumentation says, and you get plunked in the head with rain. We are approaching capacity on 37th Street. So our metrics and our tools are all confirming this. Peak hour capacity is typically 880 cars per lane per hour. We have about 700 now, with 97 more vested. So this is future development, could be in the corridor, could be elsewhere, that has paid its impact fees, sort of ghost trips that are invariably going to materialize because they're pretty far in the development process. By 2040, which is our long-range plan horizon, we're expected to greatly exceed capacity. And pretty much, if you're sick in this county, you're going to end up on 37th Street sooner or later. That's the problem. If you're coming from the south, you're going to take one of these two approaches, US 1 or Indian River Boulevard. If you're coming from the north, you're going to do the same thing in reverse. And we have a problem in this part of the county because there's a lack of opportunity for parallel roadways. So if you're looking at South County, and some of those roads are starting to fill up, but thankfully we've maintained the grid very well down there. So you could go to 5th Street Southwest, 1st Street, 4th, 8th, 12th, 16th. There's a road every half mile. Likewise, north-south with 20th, 27th, and so forth. Here you've got golf courses, airports, lagoons, environmental conservation land, and other than that, everything's great. But you know, you really have a lot of natural interruptions of the grid that prevent us from maintaining a robust roadway network in this area. And that, in turn, funnels traffic onto 37th. So moving ahead, you could also use 36th, but it's really only one way in if you're coming from the south because there's no signal to get back out. So if you're going southbound, you have to go back out on 37th. So it potentially might get worse because we've got 1.672 million square feet of medical and office in the corridor now in the medical area. South of 37th, we have 150 vacant acres, and north 160 vacant acres. And that's what's visible on your photo here. And to my knowledge, you know, no other hospitals or major modes that be the only thing that would really draw traffic off from here in the future. So what are the challenges of widening the roadway, which typically we measure the capacity on the roadway, we measure the traffic, we forecast future traffic, and then we go through a process of looking to widen the roadway. Well, this is not, I didn't go out there and wait for the worst opportunity. This is just a typical shot. I got this right off of Google Earth. And you see 3 cars queuing up here. This is pretty close to US 1. And they're waiting for a gap to be able to go across traffic and make a left turn and get out of here. And who knows if these are, you know, patients with medical issues or been treated or something. And then if we make it 5 lanes, we're looking at really that same scenario, only they're going to have to weave across, you know, traffic in both directions. So.
A light.
Well, good question. There's a warrant for how lights and spacing of lights, and you really are only going to be able to fit 2 lights in this about mile corridor, because the spacing's got to be about 1,200 feet between lights. If you put lights too close together, you're going to end up trapping vehicles. They're going to run into a red light and back up in queue and create gridlock on the other light. So there are engineering criteria for how many lights you can put in. So anyway, there are 24 separate driveway entrances and cross streets in that 1.25 mile area. And there's no way you're going to be able to put that many lights in. And it really isn't great access management either, in that there's really just a lot of connection. We would prefer to give people, make them share single connections that we can signalize at intervals, but this is a very old street. Okay, this is what it looks like on a 5-lane roadway. This is 53rd on US 1. It's not the prettiest thing in the world. New York. You know, it's a lot of pavement. It's very expensive. So the disruption factor is also something to keep in mind. You know, if we got a 3-lane roadway, we're going to make it 5 lanes. Invariably, there'll be lane closures. And, you know, this is a corridor that's already, you know, people, you know, it's life and death situation at this point. So you look at 2 years of construction. The public works director was telling me he was extremely concerned because there's a lot of underground utilities and that sort of thing. They're very old that have to be brought up, and, you know, who knows what they'll find. Could be right-of-way and drainage issues as well. So it's not something we're looking forward to, something we need to do to maintain mobility. What can you do other than this? Well, we took a look at the travel demand forecast model in the future, and we came up with an idea. We used, and I'll show you a little bit more about the model in a minute, but this goes back to something that a kind of a transportation think tank came up with, and just shows you what a multiplicity of streets can do compared to one street and one direct route. So if you've only got 2 streets to get from your origin to destination, there's really only one way to go. But the more streets you add on, the more options you've got, and it grows exponentially. So, you know, if you've got 4 streets, you've got 35 separate routes. So you spread the load around a lot. I mean, that's the idea of having smaller streets, basically multiple small streets versus one big street. And this is sort of a cartoonish illustration of how our travel demand model works. Believe me, millions of dollars go into this. I went to a travel modeling workshop once, and I was the dumbest guy in the room by about, 100 IQ points, and, that's dumber than I usually am. But in this case, these were physicists. These were very, enlightened guys. I mean, all PhD level people. The original model was developed at MIT, and it's based on something called a gravitational model. So it's sort of based on the theory of gravity, meaning the travel between an origin and a destination, in this case a house and the hospital or a house and the mall, is inversely proportionate to the impedances. How long is it? How much traffic is it? Whatever. And directly proportionate to the magnitude of the draw. So if you only have a couple of hospitals or one mall or a Home Depot or a big draw, you're going to get a lot of trips to it. So people weigh the calculus on, which the closest Home Depot or the Home Publix or whatever. The hospital, they probably don't have that luxury. So this is what it looks like superimposed over a map. Once again, this is just for illustration of the city. And we ran this travel demand model, calibrated it for our situation. It does an assignment phase, which is the last part of the model. Once we know where people are going from and where they're going to, it assigns them the most likely route. So we use now a new sophisticated component that kind of more replicates human behavior into the travel demand model. Most people make tours. They may go to work, then go out to lunch with a subtour, then stop in an errand on the way home, and so forth. So based on the model, we came up with a hypothetical new route that would start, and I'll show you the route in a moment, at Aviation Boulevard in US 1 and go through largely unbuilt upon properties connecting to 11th Drive, 35th, kind of the southeast corner of the hospital proper, if you will, over by Vero Orthopedics. So if we could weave a small section of roadway in there and get some traffic to bite at it, the model tells us that's exactly what it'll do. It'll bite at it. So that small segment could drag 5,641 cars off of 37th Street, and it could forestall the need to have to do something for 20 years. And that was the public works director's opinion and what our model's telling us. We looked at another thing, connecting 11th Avenue from 37th north up to 41st, and I think I have a picture of it. And because those guys coming from the north, once they're on US 1 and on the boulevard, they'll probably stay on it. Not too much traffic bid it going to 41st to 11th, but some did. And without it, it has residual benefits on US 1 and the boulevard too, because if people are coming from the south, they'll get to Aviation Boulevard and turn right and go right to the hospital. They won't have to go back and load that traffic on 37th. But if they're going to something on 37th, they might just stay on US 1. So these are the 2 points we would need to connect, and as you can see, it's fairly undeveloped at this point. Just a small number of property owners in the area. This is an old residential development down here, which is largely abandoned. It has some dirt roads on it, only a few property owners. And our conclusion is we could eliminate the need to widen, or at least forestall for a long period of time, 37th Street. We have an advantage of reduced traffic on US 1 as well, which is very important for emergency vehicles trying to get to the area. Less disruptive, benefits the property owners. A few issues to work out. What's this going to cost relative to widening 37th? We think it'll be cheaper maybe because it's, in some uncharted area, but we do need right-of-way, so that adds to cost. We're reaching out now at this point. It's just a conceptual idea at the very preliminary stages. We're coordinating with stakeholders. We've come up with 3 conceptual alignments, and we've met with WMAC Holdings, who owns the largest vacant property in the way at this point, coordinating with you at this point. So the conceptual alignments look like this. Oops. There you go. Okay. Trying to avoid the few residential properties that are on the south of the picture at Aviation and US 1 and weave this through the vacant property to connect over to 11th and 35th Lane. We would look at a route like this. Another possible route would bring it a little bit closer to the property's boundary.
Phil, point out
You know-
the hospital and everything as if you would for the
Sure.
other one, thanks.
Yeah, I'll tell you, geometry wasn't my best suit. So I want you to take a car over Aviation, across US 1, and where is it going to go?
Absolutely. Okay. This cursor right here is the car.
Where's the cursor?
Down at the bottom left.
Ah, I see the cursor. Okay,
Aviation.
okay, okay, there we are.
So you're right now at the signal at Aviation and US 1.
Got it,
Yeah, a picture's worth 1,000 words. So let me
absolutely.
Okay, right now, if you're at the same point in the same car and you're heading to the hospital,
Right.
here's what you're gonna do.
Right.
Up US 1, it's a
Right.
4-lane road and we can never widen it. It's got railroad tracks abutting it.
Right.
We take up to 37th, we make a right turn on 37th, so we force this trip onto 37th. It's possible you can go in on 36, but then you gotta come back out on 37th.
Okay,
So that's what you gotta do now.
okay.
With this new proposal, you can do this. Take this road, do you see the cursor moving on it?
Yeah,
Weave it through this vacant parcel, and you will come out here at 11th and 35th. Pretty close to the hospital. So,
what's on the corner?
this is, I think, Vero Orthopedics on one, and,
Well,
Yeah.
yeah,
Where's that down?
okay. Really, if you look close to it, it doesn't look like it's impacting any construction, any buildings, or any structures,
I got it, honey.
but it
I-
looks like it might be pinching a parking space or two in there. So,
So are those homes down in the bottom?
they are mostly abandoned. 1 or 2 are occupied here. This is all abandoned property here and here. So this alignment weaves between the existing homes. But I believe there's, I don't know, how many residents would you say are still in there? Well, yeah, this alignment doesn't hit any of the residences. I think 1 or 2 of these homes are still occupied. And whether it's a rental or permanent, I don't know.
Okay.
Okay.
Probably over here. This is Camp Haven over here, and we missed that.
Right,
We wouldn't want to, last thing we want to do is relocate homeless.
So it hooks up with,
It
11th.
hooks up, does it hook up with, if that's Vero Orthopedics,
Yes,
then if you turned right, you'd go to the ER type thing.
correct.
So you're going on what is Hugh McChrystal Drive.
Crystal.
You could do that. You
Well,
could-
that is Hugh McChrystal
You
Drive.
can stay on 11th and head up this way.
11th
And
is
take
That's Hugh
37th.
Crystal Drive.
That's Hugh
They call it
McChrystal
Hugh.
Drive.
That's Hugh
Hugh
McChrystal
McChrystal
Drive, or you can take 35th Lane to attractions to the right. It gives you more options.
And you would take 35th Lane to where?
If there's another entrance to the hospital, maybe the employees.
Okay, oh, no, I understand, okay, but how wide are you going to make this road on McChrystal Drive?
Well, the right-of-way is 80 feet. The road would only be 11-foot lanes, so it'd be 2 11-foot lanes hooking up to McChrystal Drive. So we probably wouldn't expand McChrystal Drive much more than it is now. This is a question for the engineer, and, we're so in the preliminary stages, I don't know that we can answer design questions.
Since they closed the entrance where you could go into the hospital and then come around to like the wellness center and things like that and the V&A building, there's a lot of traffic on that road right there, which is McChrystal Drive, and it gets backed up terribly at certain hours of the day because there are a lot of offices there, medical offices.
Right.
And it's a little bit of, I think it's a real, I'm surprised they haven't addressed that yet.
Well, and because people go from 36th that want to go south, go down there and do that.
What is your plan when this proposed road, reaches 37th Street?
Right.
Well, we have options at that point. What we'd like to do, and we could meet our spacing requirement to the other signal and signalize this intersection here. So we will have 2 signalized intersections with 2 streets. I don't know if I have a larger area map. The other signalized intersection is the existing one. And then we have the option of going north, and you've got the behavioral health center up here. There's undeveloped property behind this, and take it all the way up to 41st to put yet more connectivity and have more roads with less impact. But we're not really planning that part yet, part north of 37th. I do think this would be a great location for a signalized intersection, maybe the only other one we could put on the street.
At 37th, at 37th.
37th and 11th,
Which
yeah.
is at the end of McChrystal Drive.
Correct.
So Phil, what you're saying is that this part of it, up on 11th or 11th Avenue up to 37th, which is called Crystal Drive as well, but 11th, let's say, there is enough right-of-way that it doesn't go on to hospital property.
Correct. It won't affect any construction, any built development at all. There's plenty of right-of-way. I mean, it's open. We're not proposing a 4-lane road, so we're not looking at a great expansion of existing pavement at all when we get to this connection point here.
So you wouldn't be asking for any land to shave off any land from the hospital is what I'm asking? Property.
Yeah, we don't know what we're asking yet.
Yeah.
Okay.
But that's a great question, it might make sense for that whole thing to be a public road and for the county to own and maintain it and that sort of thing. That would be something to find out.
And it is not, it is not a public road at this point. It is part of the hospital, is that correct?
That's
Yeah, that's what I'm, so it is.
We know that, yes.
Yeah, okay, thank you.
Crystal Boulevard, I like
Right.
Right.
Right, and he can maintain it.
Yeah.
But it might make sense to, as Phil was saying, basically, the main entrances to the hospital on the west side here, a signal, fully signalized intersection where you could have pedestrian crossways and that sort of thing, which is a place to have that, at a signalized intersection, and what you have already at 10th Court. So you'd have both sides of the campus with a full signal, and it seems to us to make sense coming from the south and the west. And then if we were to have an extension through hospital property to the north up to 41st Street, anything that developed in the medical zoning district south of 41st Street, it would be a direct connection into the hospital campus at a signalized intersection. So we think that makes sense for the future as well. So that's the concept in a nutshell.
And what's your timeline on this? Sorry.
I think we're in such a preliminary stage, it would probably take us at least a year to flesh out some conceptual alignments and another year or two to negotiate with the property owners in the area. No road can be built in less than 3 years. So we're looking at 5 years, absolute earliest. That's if funding's identified, probably a little longer. We'd like to act. I mean, these opportunities close. I mean, somebody could develop in some of this vacant property and the opportunity's forever lost. We have to do something. We take our responsibility to move people very seriously, and this area is extremely sensitive. I mean, I think we need more alternatives.
And I think with the opportunity that we have with Cleveland Clinic coming in as well, it's just going to exasperate.
Make it busier.
Yep, the problem even more.
More traffic.
And we would be glad to work with your staff, any other staff, as things move forward, because it would take a while to develop, but you guys are key players in this.
So are you saying that the purpose of this road is to get people from the other side to the hospital sooner, or just to have an avenue of, tell me the exact.
Primary purpose to me is to relieve 37th Street. It's overcapacity and getting worse. And the secondary purpose would be to provide more mobility options to different parts of what's becoming a major medical node, not just a single hospital, People can come northbound on US 1 and continue on US 1 to 37th if that serves them. Now they can take this option. They can bite at the Aviation Boulevard if that's closer to their destination. Northbound traffic, some of it could bite at the 41st Street extension should we build that. The more options you give, the more you spread out the traffic load. So I think the primary purpose is really relieving the burden on 37th somewhat, because that's going to be a real nightmare to do anything about otherwise, and to provide more mobility options to the hospital.
And I would add to that, I believe people.
37th on that one small corridor, though, between US 1 and right? I mean, it doesn't do anything for the other side of 37.
It'll make it a little easier for people coming from the west.
Yeah, that's a good point. But, where's most of the traffic coming from? I mean, I would say the mainland probably constitutes a majority of hospital visits. I mean, quite a few come from the beachside too. But our beachside population is about 16,000, and our county's population is about 150. So I think coming up US 1 from South County And you get to North County, you know, you've got Sebastian Hospital up there. There's still a lot of people that come from up there, but I would say the bulk of the hospital clientele is probably in the South Vero Beach area and West Vero corridor, so.
It'd be interesting to know that. The hospital knows that, so it would be interesting to
You know, right, and
understand
a lot of that traffic,
we know it by zip code.
a lot of that traffic on 37th isn't just going to the hospital. Those people are going from the north, down 37th, over to Indian River Boulevard to go to their work. They might work in stores over on the beach or something. You know, that is a work road for people. That's an access road that go north to live or whatever, and work, you know, somewhere else. So it isn't just hospital people that are taking that road.
Oh, yeah.
It's
the whole-
really,
Yeah, people cut through on it.
well,
You
it's,
know, I would think they would cut on 41st because, or want to, because of 37th's condition, and 41st is relatively uncongested. So if they're coming from points north, that would be a better way to get to the boulevard. But yeah, some people are still going down to 37th. Maybe they live closer
going
to
down
it.
37th.
Yeah.
Is it your intention to extend this all the way to 41st? You said that, but then you said, well, we don't have any plans beyond 37th, so I'm confused a little bit.
Yeah, me too. We don't have any concrete plans at this point. It's still very conceptual. Obviously, this is where the action is. This is the thing that can do the most benefit. Our travel demand model said we can get 5,600 cars on it. The other one, to me, I think is an important priority, and it might be maybe half the value of the other road would be to serve future development that comes in that's not there yet, and that we can impose upon the developers as they come in, because they're going to need access. We don't want to make them connect directly to 37th.
Right.
It would just make a bad problem worse.
And that's the way we see it in county planning. That northern extension is mostly for the future development that's going to be between the boulevard and US 1, and it's a way to hook into the campus. Because we think it's zone medical, so it'll either be medical offices, ALF is a type of proposal we've seen more recently, and it would make sense to give them access to a signal coming down into the hospital campus.
And then you show 3 different paths for this road to the undeveloped portion. Is there any, is that just options, or is there any significance to that distinguishes them?
Right, those are prepared by County Public Works Director, and it was a few scenarios that would work as far as the curvature and the engineering for it, and to work around certain, some of the homes and that sort of thing. Also looking at what the owner of the property, Dr. Mellon, is really in control over, is what kind of design works for his future intentions as well, or even maybe doing a joint stormwater pond that would aid whatever development happens on that property and handling the stormwater runoff from this project. There's only 3 here just for discussion purposes. What the alignment would be moving forward is going to be something that's going to develop.
There's a lot of work to be done yet.
Oh, yeah.
There is, but we figured we needed to start.
No, we
Yeah, and we certainly welcome you weighing in on the alignments, your preferences, what you think would be, you know, the optimal alignment.
Well, we appreciate you coming to here so early in the planning stages to make us aware of what's going on, and especially as the talks go on with Cleveland Clinic and all that. I mean, understanding from their perspective too what's going on, and letting them know that this is happening in the future, and it's important, so.
Anyone you all want us to speak with at the appropriate time, we're available, ready to do it.
Yeah, we're vested in the community. I mean, we've raised families here. I've raised 2 kids, Stan half a dozen. And, you know, we really do have an interest in seeing the hospital prosper and continue to serve us well like it has. And I want to thank you.
Well, thank you.
Thank you.
for coming. We really appreciate it.
Right.
We'll stay in touch on this.
Interesting.
Yeah.
You good?
By the way, I have one more question. I'm sorry. Have you all talked at all to, like, the Vero Orthopedics group? Do they know, all of those medical communities know what you're doing?
No, we're
or what
just,
you're planning?
you're kind of you're our second stop.
Okay.
You now, if they're watching.
They know now.
Yeah, if there was.
I think the word is out, but yes.
Right, okay, because I think that's important.
Yeah, I agree.
They're your neighbors.
Yes, they are. They are. Thank you.
Thank you.
They can break your leg.
Any other business from the trustees? Any public comment?
Guess what?
Valzudans, thank you. I just wanted to give some feedback on the due diligence stuff because I see a lot of patients every day, and they're all asking because I'm married to someone very important in the process, and but we have, being involved in this in the past, being in the County Medical Society, I get a lot of phone calls from people, from physicians, employed physicians, independent physicians, medical society people, patients asking about what's going on, is this a good deal, is this going to be good for our community? I just wanted to give you feedback on what I'm hearing on the due diligence stuff. So first thing is that they're generally excited about Cleveland Clinic and the choice, and that's good. And but there is some anxiety about the unknown, and I've learned that when people don't know exactly what's going to happen, their natural human nature is just to assume the worst case scenario. And so some of the physicians who call me asking are worried about what's going to happen to their livelihood, to their patient. They're worried about what's going to happen with their patients, what's going to happen with their livelihood, whether they're going to still be able to practice in the same way that they are with this new institution. And some of them feel like they're not really participating. I was a little concerned that 99% of the due diligence is over.
The paperwork. Paperwork piece of due diligence.
Yeah, so what they're saying is some of these people don't, and these are some of the people I've talked to are pretty prominent physicians who've been here for a super long time and felt like they haven't really had any participation in learning what is going to be happening with this process. So I just wanted to encourage you about that. I mean, I've been very involved in all this, but I haven't heard one thing from anyone. No one has asked me about anything related to this. And I'm not saying that I should be given special treatment, but I mean, I talked to, I don't think the president of the County Medical Society has been contacted. People who are previous chief of staff at the hospital, I don't know if they've been. So I think that there needs to be a little bit more with that. Not that, I know personally that you guys are doing all the right stuff, but if there's lots of gaps that are left, then people just, by human nature, tend to assume the worst case scenario.
Oh.
So the other part of it is that to me it seems like that there's the big thing that the hospital district has to do with this is the terms of this lease. And I don't really hear anything, and I know you guys or your attorneys are working on that, but no one in the public really hears what's going on with the terms of the lease. They're worried about the things that you guys are worried about, OBGYN services continuing, the psychiatric services that potentially might not make money. The one that I heard a lot about that I wasn't thinking about was pediatrics. They're worried about what's going to happen with pediatric services in the future. And those three are all part of the lease. There's a lot of stuff in the lease that you guys, it's not really the hospital's job, it's the district's, because to make sure that all that stuff stays in there. The two biggest parts of the lease that are the indigent care and what's going to happen. We got that verbal commitment that they're going to cover that, but the devil's in the details. And I just want to make sure that that we have a great potential partner, but the financial impact on the community going forward is really going to come down to the financial part of this impact is going to come down to what happens with indigent care, and also what are the terms in the lease after they come in. When they renegotiate the lease, are they going to be paying, and are they going to be paying at market rates? Part of the due diligence has to be going out and figuring out what is a market rate for a lease of a hospital, our hospital facilities that are owned by our public. And I hope that's part of the plan here, is that they should be paying rent for the lease of a publicly owned facility, in addition to providing for indigent care as they said they were going to do. And I'm not sure if that's where that is in the plans, but I think that's something that as hospital district trustees is very important. And the last one, the sunshine law terms, people don't ask about that. So it's not like a hot topic, but it's a huge issue because of the fact that it's owned by the public. Oh, going back to the lease and paying rental and lease, there has been discussion before about doing a lease where it was all the payments up front, and this has been done in the past. But I would question whether it might be better to have more of an annual lease so that you have a revenue stream to pay for the non-hospital-based indigent care in our community. We built a great hospital here that's very attractive, and if we can get a revenue stream out of that, that means taxpayers are not paying or paying a lot less out of their pocket. That's a great benefit financially to our community. In the sunshine law terms, if someone's paying market rent for it and we have agreements in the lease that they're that they're going to provide all the same services that we always wanted, that the community needs, then there doesn't have to be a ton of, in my opinion, doesn't have to be a ton of oversight of their daily operations. But if you don't have those agreements done right in advance, then you're going to be stuck in a situation where you still need a lot more oversight. So I just wanted to relay what some of the people have been saying to me and some of my thoughts on that, and thank you very much.
No, appreciate the input. Really do appreciate it.
Dr. Zudans, I would hope that you would give the same kind of presentation, not so much about the lease, because that is really a district issue, but your concerns about the doctors that don't know much about, I mean, they are doing due diligence, so that it's sort of that quiet period. But I would suggest you go to the Board of Directors meeting. It's next week. It's open. And just tell them a similar story, because we're not.
I'm glad you brought that up. And okay. I think that maybe the employed hospitals and the hospital itself they're the ones who are involved in what's been going on so far. I'm talking about, there are doctors who practice in the community or might even use Sebastian Hospital, or independent doctors who use one or both hospitals.
Exactly.
They're a part of this community too, and they're going to be impacted by how this is all done. And then, but yes, I
know that we do have a representative from the hospital here, but I don't know if, and I know they're going through all the papers of everything that's ever existed at the hospital. But I do think that, rather than just come to this board, and I think your presentation was excellent, but also go to the Board of Directors of the hospital to give them, that's a big board, give them your concerns as well, and from your patients that are talking to you.
Yes, I will.
You're very accessible. I do call you about the lights in Rio Mar Bay, and I really do appreciate it.
All right. Here. All right. Thank you for your input. Is there any other public comment? Hearing none, can I hear a motion for adjournment?
So moved.
So moved. Okay, thank you. We're out.
Do my best here.